position, every profession, maybe the Supreme Court judges or university professors, they are supposed to be retiring at the age of 65. But
we are still at 60. Yes. The moment we are 60,
government service is 60.
The IAS officers, they retire at 60. So
now even including all departments, excluding the doctors of central government health scheme, they are retiring 65. We all, any department, whether D.S.I, A.S.I, any survey, any other departments of 60.
Yeah, but the tough part for this Pandey Sahab is simply this, that and perhaps that is something again Joint Director General Sahab will concur with, that archaeology, much important as it is, to heritage and conservation and so on, such wonderful students you have, has thus far, even after independence, made for only truncated careers. You find one archaeologist in this country at this moment who has served for 40 years or 45 years, that would be 1% of the total population of archaeologists. It is amazing. So our investment into heritage has to be greater, and certainly for the sake of our students, more sort of redoubtable careers have to be made which are absolutely long term. The government should be seized of the matter, I think.
But one thing, when you work in the government, after a certain period, we become so much fed up. The day we retire, we think that as if we have come out of the jail. Really, you can't believe, Professor Pratap, the day I retired, very next day I used to wear, talking my shirt in that. So I took out. Okay, now I am completely free. No decorum. I am free the way I want to move, the way I want to dress. So, and no sir. If I tell someone sir, it's out of my heart. When you work in the government, sometimes your bosses, you may not like him, but you'll have to call him sir.
So, but that said, government is the sort of the crucible within which freedom such as we know it exists. So it is.
I'm not saying it's a bad enterprise. The system is like that. It's fine. The day we retire, we initiate some other. It's just a turning point in our life. The second innings starts. That's what.
The best part.
Best. Yes.
In political parties,
right,
they consider something like some group of persons who have crossed 70 years. They are still in politics, but they are not given political birth in the form of ministries. And they are said that you all are something like a Path Pradarshak Mandal. All the political parties, all the senior members, I'm not going to take their names. They very much, I should say, they nurse immense grievance that they had nursed certain young persons to become the Prime Minister, if I'm allowed to say like that. And anyhow, the Prime Minister had devised that we are no more in use in the running of the ministry. We have only to advise. So that is their problem still. Like Mahatma Gandhi, someone may think that one has always a value if someone develops the interest and goes on doing the things. As I think, Professor Dr. OTA sir, you have always engaged in the pursuit of knowledge in the field of preserving and conserving our ancient heritage. So that very professional training and practice which you had should always be there to enlighten those who are going to join that field of heritage management, conservation and the things like that. So that is something like a guru. Guru's importance never declines, I should say. It always continues, provided a shishya is there who can take care of the ideas of guru and can go on doing further research and further activities.
And this management course is for 1 year? Or
this heritage management course is of 2 years.
2 years.
It is
So
2 years of 4 semester.
You give a degree.
Then we provide MA in heritage management.
Very.
These
how many students are there?
This year, 19 students joined.
Very good.
19 earlier 12 students joined and they almost passed. Means they have appeared in the examination and their copies are, all the scripts are checked, and now they are going to receive their degree. Good. So 19 students are there. Actually, due to the pandemic, we could not in the form of taking the students to different places of heritage value so that they can have the first-hand information of the things like visiting the site about which you are going to tell today. That would have been very fine. But of course,
anyway, it was for everyone. I mean, we got affected for last 1.5 years. Very badly. Can't help.
So, even then, I think there is a instrumentality of Google Earth. So Google Earth takes one in a very three-dimensional manner to different sites. And if someone is there who can guide and tell about the things, about 2-3 days, yes, about 2-3 days back, there was a lecture by one PRO of Mehrangarh Fort, Mehrangarh Fort of Jodhpur. So she spoke about the architecture and engineering of Mehrangarh Fort. Actually, we had requested because we had a paper on engineering and architecture of the monuments. So anyhow, we are outsourcing the experts so that the students can learn it.
Should we start? It's already 2.
Sir, yes, please start, and those who are joining, they will join.
Okay. So I'll go for the presentation. Present now. Try. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is very much okay.
Yeah. So at the outset, I must thank Professor Rakesh Pandey, for inviting me to interact with the students. And of course, my old friend, Professor Ajay. I'm very happy to see him today, listening to me. I mean, he is a pioneer in that area, particularly where rock art is concerned. And that his book is just excellent. I was going through. Now, students, I mean, one thing is very clear. If any of the students, they want me to explain certain things in Hindi while speaking, they can just interrupt in between and I'll explain it. But I'll make it very, very simple, not at all very professional and all that. Now, at the outset, all of us, we know that conservation is such a thing, we feel that there is some sort of interventions in the monument, in the antiquities, on the heritage buildings, where we slightly modify or do some patchwork, do some repairing. So there what happens, our ancient heritage slightly changes. Of course, it has to change. The basic principle of conservation is, we know that everything has to deteriorate. We cannot stop it. But one thing is certain. What we do in conservation, we reduce the life of deterioration. It becomes slow. But everything has to deteriorate today or tomorrow. Only thing, reduce the life of the pace of deterioration. That's what we do in conservation. But here what I want to say, rock paintings are so fragile, so sensitive. Can we really manage in such a manner that without applying any chemical, any intervention in that, can we really preserve it? This is one experiment which I did at Bhimbetka. All of us know that's a World Heritage Monument, and how we manage the site, and you will find that things are at place. So that is what the main subject matter is all about. So when you talk about heritage, how do you define? One is the natural heritage, all of us we know, biodiversity, and archaeological, historical heritage, that is well known, and the living heritage. You know, our cultures, which encompasses both tangible and intangible. So these are the three broad type of heritage that is looked. The interesting aspect of these heritages, they are all finite, very fragile, all the three, and they are not inseparable. They are inseparable from each other. Means all these three varieties, I do not think we can separate. Usually what is happening, for example, government body like Archaeological Survey of India, they are only taking care of their tangible heritage, forgetting about the natural heritage or the present day cultural continuity, anything around that. But what we feel, that all these three things are all connected. They cannot be separated. You take out one aspect, you will see there is a deterioration. That is what we are doing. And second, lastly, there is a big diversity in these varieties of heritage. Now, all of us, we know that our Constitution of India has told us that we have got the fundamental duties, and one of the fundamental duty clearly states, it is the duty of the citizen of the country to value and preserve our rich heritage of our culture. So it's not that we all the time think that it's a government property, government job, and we as a citizen of the country do not have any responsibility. It's not. Even our fundamental states, our constitution also states under the fundamental duty that is our duty. Now, before going to that, most of us we think that this heritage conservation is a job of a professional, or government departments, or those who are experts in that, they will be doing it. It's their job. Like we common citizens, we do not have any responsibility. I feel it's not. I'll ask you a few questions. Just ask, and impartially, without any biasness, you just think. You'll get your answer. Whose heritage it is? Is the heritage of the government? Or it's our heritage? It's like, going to a garden which is maintained by the government. Or traveling the train. Whose train? If I see that it's a government train, government will clean it. I will make it dirty. It's their job to clean it. That's a different. If I feel that's my property, I'll give it to you. Who should be benefited? It's the local people should be benefited. Whose responsibility is to preserve our past heritage? I feel you will find all these answers in the forthcoming slides. It is the responsibility is ours. Past. Whose cultural continuity we are talking about? It is the local inhabitants. It's not me being in the government department, going to one place, taking care of the monuments. No. The local people, those are staying in that particular area, it is their cultural continuity. Who are the part of the natural cultural ecosystems? It is the local people. So, finally, it boils down that the local community have got a major stake in heritage conservation. And I'll give a very small information. Even the World Heritage Convention, World Heritage Center of UNESCO, they have got a policy document. They say that for maintenance and development of these monuments, World Heritage Monuments, will have to involve the local community. Their participation is essential. This is the complete. If we are maintaining a World Heritage, we will have to involve the local people in our venture, in our management, in our conservation and all that. Now I will give you, there is a word called preventive conservation. Preventive conservation is very simple. I mean, it's do not interfere anything, like a paper conservation we say. We never repair it, but sometimes that fumigation chamber, it's called a preventive conservation. Or if I take care of my body, particularly timely, I take my food and I take good food, then I won't be getting any disease. So it's like a preventive measures. So if I really take care from the different dimensions, the deterioration process, damage won't take place. It will take place in a very later period. It will slow down the whole process. So that is what the preventive conservation comes. Now, conservation also includes good number of research into that. Conservation never think that like engineers, architects doing something, repairing it. They do not require a brain. No, lots of research is required for the conservation. That also you will realize through the course of this lecture. Now, we will now go to the Bhimbetka site, which is the world largest rock art complex in the country. And some of you might have seen it or must have read, of course. And this is very close to Bhimbetka. Bhopal. Now, this Bhimbetka is unique in many sense. This is the only prehistoric sites in our country which has been declared the World Heritage. Besides, it is the only World Heritage in our country which has been declared under cultural landscape. This is only, no other monument in our country has been considered under the cultural landscape. Why it is called cultural landscape? Because the archaeological heritage or the human interaction in the past show a very good tandem with the interaction with the surrounding environment. That continuity one can see. So that's why it's a cultural landscape. How the early hunter-gatherers, prehistory hunter-gatherers, they were cope up with the local environment and the landscape. And when you declare any World Heritage, UNESCO says why it is World Heritage. There are very beautiful things. UNESCO said there are two criteria. Bhimbetka reflects a long interaction between the people and the landscape. That we see at Bhimbetka. And Bhimbetka is closely associated with the hunting gathering community, and the tradition and the continuity can still be seen among the Adivasis or the local inhabitants of that area. That is an interesting aspect which you call, living heritage. The moment these two things have been considered to make it a World Heritage, the responsibility increases. How? I'll go back. How? Besides the archaeological heritage, we will have to preserve the living heritage. This is the only monument in our country where Archaeological Survey of India, to preserve this monument, has to consider the local cultural remains need to be preserved. And this particular Bhimbetka lies within a Roktapani sanctuary. It's within a part of a sanctuary, and it has got excellent biodiversity. And besides, it has got natural architecture. Beautiful shapes. They are all the shelters, caves in that area. I mean, you'll find the shapes are just wonderful. And many people come just to take a photograph of the different shapes. And another thing, it has got many perennial as well as seasonal water bodies. There is a nala. Besides, there are springs, and some of the springs are perennial. Even today, the nearby villagers, they are getting water. must have been used in the past. So why I am showing all that? The part of the surrounding environment might have been used by the prehistoric man. As an archaeologist, as a site manager, we need to preserve all this. And this site, it has got a long history. It has been excavated and it has got a long history right from Asulian, as Professor Ajay Pratap was telling, right from the earliest human habitation till medieval, even the present day continuity. You will find many of the paintings which could be hardly 70, 80 or 100 or 200 years. Probably the Gond area, this is a Gond area, and many of the Gond and Beels they stay, must have been paintings, must have been them. And these are the artifacts. If you find top left is the Asulian, the middle Paleolithic, upper Paleolithic, there are beautiful bone tools. It has been excavated last 50 years. In 70s it started. It was discovered by Professor Wakankar in 1958. Subsequently Professor B.N. Mishra, Professor V.S. Wakankar, and Bajpayee from Sagarim. Many people started excavating. And it has got a long history of prehistoric cultural events. Finally, it has got the excellent paintings and the cupels. These cupels you'll find in auditorium cave. And large number of paintings, magnificent paintings. Now, interesting part of these paintings were first rock shelters which was dated directly. The pigments are dated. It was dated, if I remember correctly, nearly 20 years back. Subsequently, Professor Ajay Pratap has got dated some of the paintings in that area. Ruman Banerjee probably has done it. But this site was dated something like 20 years back when I was at Bhopal. And Ams Dating. We had a collaboration with Australian universities, and some of the pigments contains organic matter as a binder. So that was the advantage. So that those dates, because everything cannot be dated. The paintings which are dated, those are not that early which we consider, but those are 2500 and 3000 BC. But there are many paintings which are considered pretty early, but those could not be dated because that doesn't contain any organic matter as a binder. Another thing, our article is published in Journal of Roman Spectrometry. This, in one of the paintings, we found egg yolk was mixed at the binder, like a gum. And this is a method, Roman spectrometry. I mean, this is non-destructible. Directly laser beam goes and you give the complete composition of that. So we do it with the Kalpakam Atomic Research Center. Now, coming down to that area, these are all archaeological part, as I told you. And as I told you, we'll have to look after the indigenous people, their cultures and all that, both tangible and intangible. There are 21 villages which is in buffer zone. I'll show you what is buffer zone. There are 15 tribal communities and 6 are non-tribal communities. Mostly are wheels and bones. And another interesting feature, they have excellent traditional lifestyle. They are slowly changing, but beautiful lifestyle. There are a lot of things to see that, and Professor Ajay Pratap will be very much interested in that. And I'm audible now?
Yes, sir, you are audible, very much audible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So this is a map which is protected by the Archaeological Survey of India and the Government of India. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups. Sorry, these 5 groups are protected. So these are in fact 5 different hills which have got the rock shelters. And you will find there are nearly 1000 rock shelters which have been located, out of which more than 500 contains the paintings. It is
Ota Sahab, the slides don't seem to be moving. We are still on the slide.
Nothing is moving.
No, the slide is not moving. We are still on the title slide.
Oh.
But certainly on my screen, there's just the first slide. Yeah, now it's moving. What I understand about heritage.
Okay. I'll go very fast so that people can follow. I told about the finite, fragile and all that, and 3 types of heritages. Okay. And the second is the fundamental duty of every citizen, which I told you. And I asked some certain questions that why the citizen, they feel it is their property, like all that which I explained you. And community participation is mandatory as per the UNESCO's policy document. And I told you about the preventive conservation and conservation research. Now it's moving, Dr. Pratap. Slides are moving?
Yes, it is moving. Now it's okay.
Yeah. So Bhimbetka is telling it's about 45 kilometers southeast of Bhopal. And as I told you, it was declared in 2003 as a World Heritage under Cultural Landscape. With 2 criteria they considered. It has Bhimbetka reflects a long interaction between people and the landscape as demonstrated in the quality and quantity of the rock art. The second criteria which they consider, Bhimbetka is closely associated with the hunting and gathering economy, which is still continuity you can see among the tribal communities. And as I told you, it's a part of the Ratapani sanctuary, and it has got the excellent biomass. And I was also telling about the natural architecture, beautiful shapes of the rock shelters and caves, and people come just for the photography of these sites. I was talking about the water bodies, and water bodies, it has got the perennial and seasonal, and many of the springs are completely perennial, and nearby villages are still using this water, and probably in the past prehistory hunter-gatherers might have used it. And as I told you, this was discovered in 1958 by Wakankar, and it has been excavated in 70s onwards by Professor P.N. Mishra, V.S. Wakankar, K.D. Bhimbetka and all that. And it has got a long history right from Paleolithic period till present day. And these are the artifacts that have been recovered, and paintings. It is beautiful paintings with cupels, evidence of cupels are there, and it has got the magnificent large number of paintings. And I was telling about the Ams dating. This is the first site 20 years back which was dated, and the date goes back to 2500 BC or so, because some of the paintings, and there are some paintings which can go back in time, but they do not contain organic matter as a binder material, so that could not be dated. So these dating has been done in collaboration with the Australian universities. And here we did some Raman spectrometry, and some of the paintings contains egg yolk that has been analyzed. Now, as I told you, now it's moving probably. All the slides?
Yes, slides are moving.
No. So there are indigenous people, because as I told you earlier, we will have to take care of the living heritage along with the archaeological heritage. There are 15 different tribal communities. The majority of them is the Goans and Wheels, and they have got the traditional lifestyles that I will be showing you. And as I told you, probably just a couple of minutes back, the whole area has got the 5 hills, and there are 100 rock shelters, out of which 500 have got the rock shelter caves, have got the paintings. Now you can see the satellite map. Anything which looks red, these are all thickly forested. Anything green, these are cultivated land. And these are the hills, which is in mixed. And I was talking with the core zone. The black one is a cultural zone, core zone, and you can find the grey part is a reserve forest, and slightly less grey, slightly light brown is a revenue area where there are 21 villages. Those comes under the buffer zone. All these, buffer zone means There is a restriction that no construction will take place and all that without permission. Now, here, it's a really challenge for us. So far the conservation and management is concerned. We will have to, in one hand, we will have to take care of the natural heritage. As I told you in the beginning, we cannot separate living heritage, archaeological heritage, natural heritage. We cannot treat. They are all together. You remove one element, things won't survive. Natural heritage we will have to take care of. We will take care of archaeological heritage and the living heritage, both tangible and intangible. I'll show you how we are doing it, what are the problems we face and all that. Now, why we call these rock art is very sensitive? The composition of the people itself. Sometimes organic matters, that gets sensitive to the natural environment, unlike the stone sculptures. Most of the rock art are in forest and forest dependence by the people, because the surrounding area people, they are ignorant of the rock art heritage. So that is one of the reasons why it gets spoiled. If they know its value, then they will come forward to protect it. Now, coming to the area, there are many problems. It is a forest, and you will find forest fire, human vandalism. These are the problems. What we do, if any site, we identify the different risks, like wood cutting activities, cattle grazing, forest fire, and all these things I'll show you. I'll go very fast, because today we do not have the electricity, whatever power I have. Preserve. Now, this Bhimbetka, every year in Ramnavami comes sometime in March, April, there used to be huge fair, one day, only for the tribal people. You can see the lot of people very close to the rock painting area. What they do, this is the activities you see, cooking and all that, because tribal people, and it's going on for last several decades. And the very next day, lot of garbage, and this garbage, some of the animals, they eat plastic and all that, they die also. 1 or 2 cases every year. And human deaths. So how we reduced it, I'll tell you the story, because this is a major factor which is spoiling the area. Now, way back in 2003, I studied. I was then working as a superintending archaeologist. After this fair, I found a lot of garbage, littered with the garbage. So I took a lot of people, collected all the garbage, and I was knowing about it. So before that, I formulated some sort of a formula, how to study this fair, what happens in this mela. Unless I understand how it happens, the area, I cannot, solve the problem. So I formulated a methodology to study this mela, Ramnavami mela. What I did, I identified the different routes on the mela day. Mela starts about 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, continues up to 6 o'clock. It's only for 5-6 hours. Identification of the villages, from which village people are coming, what is the inflow of tourists, how many vehicles are coming, hourly data. So I had the manpower, I started collecting all this data and did a mapping. These are the rock shelters. I did a mapping of the garbage spread and the different type of shops. I prepared a list of that. Very next day, it's the data of 2004, and I collected all the garbage. And all of us will know that there is a discipline called garbageology. I'll tell some other time what it means. A very interesting discipline. It had its initiative started in US. Yeah, as a part of some sort of a methodology. Because what they did, they, anthropologists, they collect the data by interviewing the people they collected. And some people said that no, whatever the data we are collecting by interviewing the people, we cannot fully rely on that. So what we will do, because they have the garbage, packets, they keep it in front of the house and it is collected by the agencies. So what they did, without telling to the people, collected the garbage for 1 year and started analyzing every year. At the end of the 1 year, they come out with a data which was different what they collected by interviewing the people. So this is a very good way of studying garbageology, which reflects the nature of the people, nature of the community, the behavior of a community. So that is what the garbageology in short is all about. So I did the same thing. I collected all the materials and analyzed. See, the plastic was about 3.5 kgs and all that. Those are all non-biodegradable. After that, I got shifted from here, came back again in 2010, transferred back, as a director. Then again I studied. To my surprise, the many things have increased and it alarmed me. If you see, earlier there was no drinking water polythene bags, it was nearly 5 kgs, polythene bags 5 kgs, lot of garbage, including the small, you can see down the gutka packets and all that. Those plastics were collected and analyzed. I found that's really increasing very fast within 5-6 years. What I did something on the very next season. Again, I studied the methodology remained same, and I found that everything got drastically reduced in 11. You can see polythene bags, gutka packets, gutka packs which are in kgs. Now 400 grams, I'll tell you what we did. And again we started continuing, got ready. What we did, there is a lot of these water bags, plastic drinking water. So we gave free water supply. Told them we will not permit it to sell. So everyone knows that tribal people, if something is available free, they enjoy. Then we supplied the baskets. There is a temple, people take all those plastic bags, sieve and throw it. So we said that recycle. Those baskets are given, we store, because we had a number of meetings with the panchayat, with the local people before the mela starts. We convinced the people. So we supplied them with all these plastic tokeries. So once they take it to the temple, bring it back and return it. It really reduced drastically. And in 2012, you will find everything, gutka packets, 100 grams and all that. And gutka packets, how we reduced? That was the time when Supreme Court had a judgment that gutka, which is sold in plastic bags, cannot be sold. So we had a ban on that, so that got reduced. So my point is, we interacted, convinced the local people, we involved them in our venture, and as I told you, lot of publicity and all that, everything about the heritage, how not to spoil it. This is how you convince the local people, you achieve it. We reduce the, non-biodegradable garbage drastically. Likewise, we learned a lesson. That was because if you go to the tribal areas, tell them about the rock art, no one will listen to you. So this was the occasion, they are very in a leisure mood. And we also started telling about the rock art heritage and the site itself. And all those things that you want to convey to the tribal population, that was the occasion. So we took the advantage of that and interacted. And a lot of tourists comes in other days. And if you see the tourism pattern, how that affects, because if you see, there are a lot of, there is only one road that goes to the Group 3. That's a 2 kilometers climb up. When it goes, lot of carbon dioxide emits. And if you see the tourism pattern in 2003 when I studied, if you see weekly data, every Sunday it increases the peak in a maximum number of tourists. That clearly shows the local tourists, local people, they come. Outside people are very less. So local people, whenever there is an off day, they come. Now, there are a lot of vehicle comes in the holidays and all that. So one has to calculate what you call the carrying capacity of the vehicles and the population, whether this area can really take. So we have got the fixed area for the parking. And this is the parking area. And we have got the pathways. So one can move within the pathways in that. So pathways are limited, parking is limited. So one has to calculate how much area it can, how much people and how many vehicles it can really support. That is what we call it a carrying capacity. So we calculated the complete area, paved area is 1760 square meters, whereas the parking area is 1140. What we did in 2000, I'm telling you the different methods how we did it. In 2003, when we calculated the area versus the peak, because we collected data in every hour. When I was here, for complete 1 year, every hourly data we have. So the peak time, when you calculated, 6 square meter comes for each individual when they move. So that is what the carrying capacity is calculated. And it was sufficient, even for 24 square meter for each vehicle in the peak time. So that was, but this exercise need to be done once in 10 years, which government should do for every monument so that you can manage it in a better way. Now this is the trench which was excavated by Wakaka, and we have still left. But if you feel there is a very small pathway and very difficult to move, there sometimes we become very rough when the school children are coming. What we did, instead of modifying anything, we put a plank, something like 50% of that, of the trench remains as it is, one can see that, and we sprayed, and you can see people can freely move. Likewise, when people start moving inside the caves and rock shelters, there's a lot of soil erosion starts. And exposing the artifacts, you can see a lot of artifacts on the surface. So in future, if I want to excavate, I cannot. So what we did, and at many places, use stones because of erosion. So how to stop? All year, we are throwing sediments on that to cover it up. But again, we feel it's a very bad thing. It mixes with the original anthropogenic sediment of the past of hunter-gatherers. And if as an archaeologist, if I excavate, I want to analyze the sediments, I won't be getting concentration. What we did, this is a norm which is followed in many countries, advanced countries. What we did, we put a plank. So you walk on that, but your site remains as it is. And if you want to excavate, you just take it out, planks, and this is what has been done. And before the A.S.I. protected it, it was protected very late in 90s only. Before that, it was a picnic spot. It was getting spoiled, most of the things. And somehow, I do not know, it's a very late protected in 90s. After that, because of human violence going on, the moment A.S.I. protected, we started putting these barriers. So people cannot touch it. But it looks barrier. Now this has been, because it doesn't match with the environment. So now what we have done, beautiful wooden floors really matches with the surrounding environment, biodegradable. Then there is a sectorization of the visitors movement. If I tell you, there are 3 identified sectors in that Bhimbetka. We all the time throughout the year visit only sector 2. These have got excellent paintings. Kajwara has got excellent paintings. Because of that, this has got excellent forest. Here, this has got excellent forest. But where we go, the forest depletion starts. Even if you are not cutting out the trees, if you get into the forest, you will find the deterioration starts. That is what is happening. So, we have suggested now to the government, why not? We divide into 3 sectors. Every 4 months, you open one sector and let people, and we'll go to the second sector after 4 months. People will be able to see new shelters, new paintings, and the earlier one which was open will get a taste. Even the natural environment has to breathe, has to get a rest. Do you know even Taj is closed in one day because we feel that even monument breathes, has to take rest. So that is what has been suggested, because it leads up, because it has become a monotony. If you come again to Bhimbetka, you will see the same. If we open these 3 divisions, you can go to another place. So the original one get a rest for 8 months in a year, and the tree grows. And if you find our exploitation, illegal exploitation, which you call forest depletion by humankind, this need to be understood, because impact of the natural vegetation has got a direct impact on the preservation of our buildings. There are a lot of animals, they come, for grazing. What happens when I started studying, these animals in hundreds and hundreds, they don't belong to the tribal communities. Outside people, they give it to the tribal community, take it to the forest. Although the tribal community hardly one or two. Because of this outside interference, the forest depletion starts. And I have seen in the valley, if the lot of grazing takes place, that area becomes completely deserted. Even the perennial springs are getting spoiled. I hope slides are changing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And wood cutting. That is how the depletion takes place. Wood cutting activities are never come. The tribal people, they are responsible. They are rather preserve their forest because they depend on the forest. When I started studying it, that's very interesting. All these wood cutting, maximum wood cutting activities are illegal by the forest department people and outside people. Otherwise, the local people, how much they want? Very little. Dried woods for their cooking and all that. And the other people are these brick making things. And when he started studying the brick making, just surrounding the Bhimbetka, there are little 2 dozens of brick. These are all plotted. And that was in 2004. Then I fought with them, with the collector and all that. I could stop only 1 or 2 because they are very powerful. After that, I got shifted. So I could stop only 1 or 2 brick till rest, I don't know. And the forest fire, why it takes place? It never takes place of its own. Illegal wood cutting takes place, then they burn it. In the Upi, in the forest, all the big trees are numbered. So these are cut and intentionally burnt. So no evidence remains. These are all forest fire are intentional. Once it happened, you can find, I'm telling you, this is the last photograph. Before making it World Heritage, these are the photographs of 2002. And when I joined in 2001, 2002, I saw this scenario, it got stopped. What I did, it's a beautiful story. It spoiled the paintings earlier. These are all shelters, have got a lot of paintings, and there are a lot of forest fires. Everything gets deserted. So what I did, I know that these are all by forest department. We immediately, indirectly publish it in the newspaper, not in our A.S.I's name. All the media, they publish that it is going to become a World Heritage, and forest department is not taking care of it, is getting the fire and all that. And forest department was very much embarrassed, and they didn't have the money. So I told that we will pay you 2 to 3 lakhs and take care of this. They are very happy. Okay, we will take care of it. We paid that amount. And can't believe subsequent years, for continuously 3, 4, 5, 6 years, we paid the money. And absolutely there is no forest fire. Because they are the people responsible for that. And what they did with the money, I do not know. But one advantage, after 5, 6 years, when it was become a World Heritage, people knew that there is no forest fire and all that. Then we slowly stopped the money. Because I knew that these are all intentional. That was the time when forest department, even if there is no money given, there is no forest fire, because people have realized by that time that if there is a forest fire, they catch all of the forest department and they will take them into task. Because by that time it was World Heritage, a lot of people started coming. So this is how we managed. This was the photograph, rare photograph, all those of 2001 and 2. So all these photographs exist in our archives now. And this is what they did. And they took the money, whatever they did, but till date, there is no forest fire. Now, if there is a depletion in the forest, the temperature increases, sunlight directly falls onto the paintings and it spoils. What happens? I'll give you some example. So, way back in 80s, the then Prime Minister visited. That was the time when I was a student of School of Archaeology. I traveled with the Kacha Rasta, saw the Bhimbetka. Subsequent years, when Prime Minister was coming, in 80s, it was a tar road, cutting the trees, everything, burning, everything happened. So, forest cover, particularly in the hilltop, the sediment cover is very less. The growth of the tree is very slow. So, what happened? There is a sunlight which was not there when Wakankar and Ian Misra worked. Now there is in many of the paintings on which the direct sunlight comes. What I did, a small study I carried out. I took 1 or 2 cases to study. This is very interesting. We took every hour. We took 1 photograph and the temperature measurement of ambient temperature, means air temperature, and the surface temperature of that. Every hour we took a photograph of the sunlight just to see how the light falls and slowly disappears and what time it disappears. Then we recorded in 2003-04 the highest temperature day. That was in June, and that was the time, and February. There you will find light comes, falls directly on 435, maximum, 535, and slowly goes away. Like that. This is what happens. This is the paintings, light falls, because these have been recorded every hour. 1 photograph of the same painting. Maximum light and slowly fading away. Along with that, we started measuring the temperature, hourly measurement of the surface of the rock and ambient temperature, air temperature. That is how we measure. We take a photograph, how the light is falling, what is the surface temperature of the rock and the air temperature. And to your surprise, you will find 1st June was the hottest, because we are with the hygrometer we are measuring. Very interestingly, hottest time and around say 4:30. Immediately the ambient temperature, which is yellow color, it decreases because sunset takes place and the air temperature cools down. But to my surprise, rock temperature doesn't. It remains, goes up till 6 o'clock. Here you will find there is a difference between ambient temperature and the surface temperature, which is not the case all over the hottest day towards the evening. And if this thing happens, the air temperature is less and the surface temperature more, then the thermal fracture takes place. This is how the caves are chipping out, paintings are chipping out. This would know. And once we the main is in the deforestation. What we did, the moment deforestation has taken place, lot of soil stripping, and all these sediments contains by mycorrhizas, and mycorrhizas are getting spoiled, completely getting eroded, and trees are disappearing. So what we did, wherever there is a paintings, we started plotting all these trees. We are making up some sort of a formula how to do it. All these trees were identified, girth, growth, everything was studied. All these 5 shelters. And what we did, one of the shelters, how we collected the data, we created a database with the hope that in every 10 years, data need to be restudied. In front of rock shelter 15, there are a number of plants, which species, how much diameter, why it's not growing, the growth rate is very slow. So these things we started studying. And finally, see, the growth is so slow. We cannot wait for another 20-30 years. The best thing is the local bamboos, which are very thin. It acts as a screen. So we decided we should start, planting it in front of the shelter. That was the suggestion given. Then I got selected from you. And all those bamboos need to be planted and grow very fast, acts as a screen. So there would be direct sunlight on the paintings, so paintings can be sunlight. We without, touching the paintings. You improve the environment, surrounding environment, and then, of course, the different types of weathering we commission the Geological Survey of India, those who study different types of weathering and all that. So all those documentations have been done. And they prepared the geomorphological maps, because we have got the complete document where the particular shelter lies, what is the conditions of the shelter, everything has been mapped. It's in something like 10 to 12 volumes. So we also started studying the floral pattern. I gave a project to NBRI, National Botanical Research Institute, just to study the ethnobotanical, taxonomic and all that. Why, I'll tell you. They identified, one of the things I am just telling, 42 lichen species. Many of the things are confined to a particular type of paintings. So this is the second one has to study why a particular type of lichen is growing on a particular type of paintings. On the paintings itself, does that painting contain some sort of organic matter at the binder? That's healthy. Not only that, the second stage which we wanted to study is a lichenometry that helps in studying, giving a tentative date to the paintings and all. And now we have fixed our weather station, which is on map. Directly sitting anywhere in the country, you can download the data. I'll just give me 1 second. I'll put my blog. Okay? Professor Pandey. Just 1 second. Yeah, slides are moving.
Yes, sir. Yes, slides are moving.
Now I'm in weather station. Okay? It's lucky that, I got the electricity now. Okay. So we do lot of, educating the people and all that goes. Now coming down to the people as a mandatory on our part, as laid down by the UNESCO, that one is a tangible, our rock art heritage need to be preserved, for which we realize that we will have to bring the local people in, we will have to take care of the surrounding environment, improve it. We will take care of our paintings, absolutely no problem for another couple of decades or centuries. But another point which UNESCO says, we will have to preserve the intangible heritage of the local people. Now, a beautiful thing, because probably Professor Ajay Pratap will appreciate all that. These tribal, when you started studying, excellent biomass adjective. There are more than 30 varieties of medicinal plants. There are medicinal man is there among the tribals. They are very fast disappearing. I'll tell you why. And they are beautiful medicinal plants. And the landscape configuration, it just looks like a fort. And they have got their small streams. They have given them some names. And another part which you call navigation. Yes, I got fascinated with the local people. What I realized, for them, for me, I can really travel in a city. But if you take me to the middle of the forest, leave me alone, it will be very difficult for me to come out without any navigation facility, equipment and all that. But these people can come out because for them, every tree, every land surface, every stone is a landmark. So, I know that this reminds me, there is a book by Bhimbetka. He says, navigation is man's service. Even animals, they navigate. The human means the way we navigate is very interesting, and the tribal navigation is for them. And this landscape is known to them, or they know. It's like a city. They go, they have given names to the different shelters, how they move. And these are the knowledge which is a traditional language. And very interestingly, just 1 second, I'll switch off the fan. And if you see in this slide, Bhimbetka is one of the areas where we get wild rice. Very interesting. This is very fast disappearing. And these are called perennial. Slowly, several times they harvest. In case of the domestic variety, it's not perennial. One time we harvest. And these traditions go on. Here we call it a deobhat. It can be eaten in the case of, if you are on fast. And these traditional knowledge, on the medicine, these are all medicine. They are very fast forgetting it. Why I'll tell you? Because we'll have to preserve all that. They are all the continuity. And they give a clue to understand the past. And the house patterns. I'll tell a beautiful story. Government gives money to construct cement concrete houses. There are many examples in these villages. They got the money, they construct their houses. Do you know what happens? In that houses, they never stay. They have constructed beautiful, cement concrete house. There, cattle, they put in that. Their anaj, they put in that. But they stay here. These are very cool. For them, it's very convenient. Why not? There are different ways we can encourage these people and to stay. They are satisfied with this house. They do not require those houses, they say. And their duty in the sense, they are the Christians, and their duty is, worshipping the nature, animism. And these are very fast disciples. It has got a direct relevance if you try to understand the past. And these are the sacred precepts of the bones and lot of folk art. And if you see, folk arts are still continuing. These are the present day things they are doing. These are the things we find in the rock paintings. Alpana and all those designs we find. This is from the rock shelter. And these are the paintings you still see. It has got a meaning. And this from the rock paintings, they have got beautiful continuity of the paintings. Even these tattoo marks. How many of us will really understand the meaning of these tattoos? People are started studying it. It will give a clue to understand many of the symbols on the rock paintings. They have got a beautiful traditional craft like basketry, paper mache, pottery making, all these people, winnowing, thrashing, their traditional methods and the traditional stories. Beautiful on mud. And there are stories of that. Finally, the question comes, whose traditional knowledge? It is their knowledge. That is how the UNESCO has identified need to be preserved. They are, staying there for generations. What is happening in recent years? The forest dependence has reduced. Not because that they do not want. They want. It's because of a fault, legislations. In this sense, we restrict them not to enter into the forest. I'll tell you how. And if you see in these buffer zone, we suggested two things. If you see on the top, this patch and this patch, this will be clear. Here and here, these are reserve forest. Not even a single tree, but under the government. We propose telling, because here the comes state versus center. We propose to the state, you initiate some sort of a social forest here. So huge area. Let these people, this tribal community, they work here, they develop this forest. This forest should belong to them. And any type of forest product that they want, no other people except these local people, they should get the advantage of this. We have got the indolences is there. We have got 3 acts. One is the Indian Forest Act 1927, Forest Conservation Act 1980, and Wildlife Protection Act of 1970. These are really good, but here it's not applicable in a right sense. In the sense, it gives the power to the government a claim on the pasture land. That's true. These people are, if you see in the paintings, there are beautiful scenes, calculative scenes of, shepherds taking their cattle and all that. The tradition is there. Why should we stop the local people to get into the forest? Forest department stops there. What we will have to do, we will have to stop the outside people to getting into the forest. Making the tribal population as the mediator. And not only that, cutting of the trees. For example, grass, pasture, all these things. Cutting of the trees and wood is done by the outside. They give some money and all that. I will give a small experience we did in that Bhimbetka when we were. The people, those who go to the forest, cut the trees and sell it outside the market, they are getting something like hardly, monthly. They get like 1,000 rupees a month. And what I told them, please don't cut the trees. We'll put you are the chowkidar of this forest. I'm audible, no? I'm audible?
Yes, you are very much audible.
Yeah. So please,
Dr. Papa Das, have you to say something?
Yeah. So these trees, I told these local people, you come and
Tapa ma'am, please mic off कर लें. So Tapa ma'am.
So don't cut the trees, and you stop the people those are cutting the trees. So it became so successful. They got something like 3,000 to 4,000 rupees in a month instead of 1,000, and it was just very, very successful. So somebody can mute the mic of Dr. Sutapa Das? Yeah. So it was a very, very successful story. The local people, the local people could stop, cutting trees and all that. And these tribal people, medicine man, those who collect the medicinal plants, how much they want for themselves? Very few. But all these medicinal plants that we see in the city areas, selling on the roadside, they are all coming from there. The outside people, by the help of these tribal population, overexploit these lands. Okay, so that needs to be stopped. What the forest department do? They should prohibit the outside people's interference into that and allow the local people to depend fully on the forest. And in no circumstances the local inhabitants by any means they destroy the forest. Nowhere in the country, because my background was anthropology after graduation. I have done a lot of field work, till my undergraduate studies and all that. Traveled a lot in Orissa, tribal population. Nowhere. They are the best people to preserve their forest. We outsiders destroy it, but giving the name of these tribal people. So forest department has to see that the local people, they are the inhabitants, they should depend on the forest, not the outside. And finally, what I suggest that to preserve their intangible heritage only means we will have to have a little change in the forest bodies. And we'll have to make them as one of the stakeholders in our management of this site. We can easily do it. And within 2-3 years time, whatever I was working in the Bhimbetka, I was successful in doing many things. But that need to be continued. And finally, we gave a concept to develop some sort of community museum. If you ask me personally, I'm against making a museum of the tribal community somewhere outside. Because somewhere from my core of my heart, I feel bad bringing this tribal population to my city, making them the dance, to see that and all. Why not I go to them to look, observe their festivals, functions and all that. So we have suggested through Manav Sangralaya, when I was in charge of the Manav Sangralaya, to develop some sort of a community museum. What is the concept of that? In these, identify certain villages, core areas, Gone village areas, where they will construct a house of their own, type and exhibit the material the way they want. They are the curator, they are the people those who construct, and they will perform the way their festival, not for us. They will have their own different functions, festivals throughout the year. So we people should go and see those functions, not bringing them to my city and making them dance. So this is how some of the, and there are many other things which I have done. It will be very lengthy, and these are some of the experiments we have done without touching the paintings, and the management, if I feel that's my personal view, if the management things are there in proper place, we can really conserve and preserve our heritage. And this one venture, so I will be very happy to interact with the students or anyone. Thank you. Thank you.
So it was a wonderful lecture, and improves my students to ask questions. And before our students ask, let me welcome Prof. Rakesh and Professor Pandey, Dr. Sutapa Das, Dr. Ashok Sonkar, Dr. Seema Mishra, and other colleagues of the Department of History and colleagues from Rajghat Basant School, Basant College, and other affiliated colleges. They are there, and students also from different disciplines, particularly Sanjeev ji is also there, yes, and students from the discipline of heritage management and other disciplines, particularly history department, ancient Indian history, and other students also they have joined. So before our honorable learned scholars like Professor Ajay Pratap and Professor Pandey and others, they will speak, and I would like them to speak and give their presidential remarks. I would ask my students to come up with their queries and ask questions.
And they can ask in Hindi as well. They can ask in Hindi.
आप हिंदी में या अंग्रेजी में किसी भी भाषा में आप प्रश्न पूछ सकते हैं.
Professor Pandey,
yes sir.
I don't intend to summarize his lecture because it was evidently clear, whatever he was proposing. But I do want to kick off the discussion with two questions which I think would enrich our students as well. So yes, sir. I would plead your permission to sort of do that.
Of course, sir. Please, sir. You please start and initiate, sir.
Well, thank you. So, thanks for inviting me to preside over my senior colleague, former Joint Director General, Professor, in the true sense of the term, Professor S.B. OTA Sahab, and this very erudite lecture. And let me tell our students and colleagues that as much as he is a fabulous scholar of the discipline of conservation and archaeology before that, he is also a perfect host. I mean, I've had the privilege of visiting Bhimbetka as an officer of the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts way back in 1990 when it was completely wild, and but then more so. And then more lately in 2012, when Professor OTA convened a big seminar at Bhopal, Archaeology of Central India, and at that time he just gave me his jeep with his driver, the government jeep, and he said, you go and visit the site and come back on your own. So that was fabulous. So, so far as our own rock art sites, our own humble sites in southern Uttar Pradesh as compared to Bhimbetka, I would gladly invite Professor OTA to find the time and come and join us when we have the commission of the Survey of India. We are still waiting for them to give an okay to our project to document rock art over there and make such recommendations. And at that time, I would offer to our coordinator of the MSM course that by all means propose a site visit, quote unquote, funded by yourself, because the IOE project does not allow us to pay for other than outside experts. So then we can take your students across to some of our sites over here. And therein, a couple of questions, sir. The first point is that so far as we are a department of history, we are perpetually on the lookout for new sources of history, as it were, through which historical narrative may be constructed. And it is very evident from the level of conservation. I mean, right now your presentation shows what a precarious circumstance the rock art of Bhimbetka, the flagship of our rock art sites in this country, was in before your absolutely mesmerizing interventions to salvage it, and salvage it you did. Is the reason partly that the way the present is constructed, is all very well to say all history is contemporary history. Well, it jolly well is not, because the landscapes in which the human race intermingled, say, 40,000 years ago, when some of this rock art was being created, was totally different. There were not that many people to start with. They were bunched up with local pockets of conservation, say Narmada Valley, Son Valley, and in southern India and northern India, where, in the Himalayas or whatever. So that is the only landscape that is human, quote unquote, at that point of time. But in the present, when we deal with rock art, everybody says, oh, it is a source of tribal history. Well, it is not, strict sensu stricto. And is that the reason why, therefore, rock art is being destroyed? Because it is not being seen as a general source of history. So this is point one. And secondly, that in the Son Valley and its neighborhood, particularly in Mirzapur and Sonbhadra, with which we would be familiar to some extent, and in Allahabad Vindhyas, there are as many as 250 known rock art sites. But the difference with Bhimbetka is that over there, 900 sites are concentrated in about 10 square kilometers on one sort of hillock or hill range. Over here, it is distributed over about 12,000 square miles or kilometers in these two districts. So there are advantages to this sort of thing, the creation of jobs if it becomes a World Heritage or cultural landscape. But what are the prospects? I mean, when you find a gap in the sort of discussion that we about to follow, can you please give us some sort of, some advice on how to proceed with actually trying to get there where Bhimbetka is today? So that's it. Thank you very much.
It was really very nice, I should say, response, and in the form of query and in the form of observation by our honorable senior colleague, Professor Pratap. And that is something like a debate between two giant scholars that Dr. OTA would be answering. But before that, I would request Dr. Kumar from Aligarh Muslim University to come up with his observations. He is an expert in medieval history, architecture and engineering, and he some days back gave a very good lecture on Hampi, the ruins of the Vijayanagar Empire. That was a marvelous lecture. So I would request Professor Kumar to come up with his observations. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Pandey. And it's a fantastic lecture. And OTA sir, I know your expertise, I know your talent, especially in the field of the preservation or in the rock and rock caves. But we are facing a lot of problem now. I know if people are having only 2 or 3 people like you who invested his life in preserving and conserving such type of these rock keeps. Since I am working in the field of the medieval monuments, we also are facing the problem of the preservation and conservation. In other words, we can say how to save these medieval monuments. These medieval monuments are situating in the densely, you can say, habitat area. And, sir, especially you have cited one example of Taj Mahal in your discourses. Taj Mahal, it is very hard, it seems very hard for us to save the Taj.
Yes.
And forest on one side, Taj, there was a very flourishing forest sometime, but now it has been cut down. It also affects the Taj. Secondly, Taj is situated on the bank of Yamuna, the river, the whole river of the river water of the Yamuna got spoiled. And we need some integrated approach, I think, for the preservation and conservation of the medieval monuments. Okay. But sir, you enlightened us with a very scientific way to preserve, to conserve these rock shelters. But I have one rather query, not a question, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, by adopting these measures, we can slow down the process of the deterioration of the rock. But what do you think? In the coming time, we can stop the degradation of the environment? I think no. Sir, even nowadays the carbon dioxide is increasing its percentage in general air, and apart from it, it's a time of the global heating. Again, the rocks, so many things emerges there. But we can only slow down the pace of the deterioration of these rocks. Still, we need, maybe possible, the good sense prevail among the human civilization, and we would stop the causing the hazard to the environment, to the forest. But Utasa, we have to do something, because we cannot stop this forest degradation. Am I right, sir?
Yeah.
Another point, sir. You explain one after another how to initiate this process, Sir, I think we have only 2 or 3 persons like you in A.S.I, Archaeological Survey of India. I appreciate Archaeological Survey of India, and I am having only 2 or 3 persons like you who devoted wholeheartedly in preserving these things. And other people, they never took any interest. This is some sort of the administrative problem, sir. I am not going to criticize the A.S.I, Archaeological Survey of India. Because whatever monuments, whatever heritage, and it is still surviving, it is just because of A.S.I. Am I right, sir?
Yeah.
More problem, sir. Now, like Aga Khan Trust, spearheading on the name of the preservation and conservation, attempting to take so many monuments, so many such type of the heritage. Sir, in my opinion, Aga Khan Trust is not doing what it should be done. So there is some problem not existed in the, you can say, tourism, something like that. I can understand the food, there is a lot of people who visited these places. They cause a harm there. So you can say they increases the temperature of say local micro zones. So many things existed. But sir, how we can solve this administrative problem? Political problem even, sir. It's my. But sir, no doubt you enlightened us very systematically to what extent the preservation and conservation can go.
Yes, sir. It was really a very nice lecture.
Very nice, sir. And even preservation and conservation, I
on the basis of your lecture, I can see the preservation and conservation needs integrated approach. It's an interdisciplinary approach.
Yes.
And but sir, how we can initiate such type of the preservation or conservation approach, especially in case of the medieval structure? These are